Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about World War III, because unfortunately it seems like it's sort of an inevitability at some point, right? You know, we've already had the first two world wars, and we've heard a lot of things in the past about, oh, this is going to lead to World War III, that's going to lead to World War III. Out of anything that I've probably ever seen in my life, I would think this is actually the thing that will start World War III, and that thing is China invading Taiwan. Most people agree that this is probably going to be the catalyst of World War III. Some people thought it was going to be like the Ukraine war and what's going on between them and Russia. Obviously, that didn't end up leading to World War III, but this is something that legitimately could lead to a World War III type situation. And according to reports from BBC News here, it could be happening a lot sooner than, well, anyone really expected. So I'm not making this video to scare you guys. I'm making this video to inform you guys. If this does happen at the rate that they're talking about it happening, it legitimately will lead to World War III. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, if China invades Taiwan, you got to think the United States, pretty much all of NATO is probably going to go to war with China. Probably like Japan, South Korea, and Australia as well. Like, it's going to be a pretty massive situation. The world has been basically building up for a showdown in this area, right? The world has been building towards this idea that Taiwan is basically going to be what ends up starting World War III. You know, if China decides to invade and try to reunify with Taiwan, the world is definitely going to have to step in and do something about that, because it threatens a lot of like global semiconductor supplies. I know that off the top of the head. Plus, like, President Biden has already repeatedly said that the United States will use military force to defend Taiwan. And obviously a war between the United States and China wouldn't really be good for the world, and it would just drag a bunch of other countries into the mix as well, which is going to just create a massive conflict. China is pursuing unification with Taiwan on a much faster timeline than previously expected, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said. Beijing has decided the status quo was no longer acceptable, he said. In Sunday's speech opening the Communist Party Congress in Beijing, President Xi Jinping refused to rule out the using force to unify with Taiwan. China sees the self-ruled island as part of its territory, but Taiwan sees itself as distinct from the mainland. Last month, U.S. President Joe Biden said U.S. forces would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese attack, despite the official U.S. policy of ambiguity on the issue. Speaking at an event at Stanford University on Tuesday with previous Secretary Condoleezza Rice, Mr. Blinken said that if Beijing could not achieve unification by peaceful means, it would use coercion and possibly force. So, obviously, this is a pretty critical situation, because this isn't just, you know, one of these, like, I know a lot of these articles, they'll quote, like, retired military analysts and stuff like that. That's not what we're talking about here. This is the Secretary of State of the United States saying that China is basically trying to speed up the process of taking Taiwan back. And as we all know, this is the catalyst for World War III. So if we're being real here, essentially what this could be saying, and what it is saying in a different way, is the timeline in which World War III unfolds is speeding up pretty goddamn quickly. So obviously pretty insane news, pretty scary news in all reality, because, well, this could lead to a massive global crisis, not even just because of the war, but this is going to be massively damaging to the global economy if something like this unfolds as well. You're talking about the two major players in the global economy and all of their allies going to war with one another in this massive conflict. Like, that's going to devastate the economy. You know, life here at home in the United States is probably going to be way worse off. It's a pretty damn horrible thing to think about. I mean, I don't think anyone really wants World War III to unfold. I've never met somebody who's like, oh dude, I really hope that, you know, the United States and China go to war tomorrow. But obviously, considering what President Biden has said now and what we've pretty much always, I feel like, kind of known, yeah, it could be speeding up. I mean, the United States, if we're being honest, if we're known for anything globally, it's for putting out military force and getting involved in these types of situations. Like, I feel like we all kind of knew that if China ever were to invade Taiwan, that the United States was going to do something militarily. I feel like that was not really a surprise. So basically what the United States has always historically done is they've never really told anybody what their plan is regarding like a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. They like, what we'll do is like someone will say, oh hey, what are you gonna do if, you know, Taiwan gets invaded by China? And we just go, we don't know. I guess we kind of had a fuck around and find out kind of policy, but now that Biden's president, he's just kind of abandoned that tradition. And I believe twice now he said that US would use military force to defend Taiwan. He's said it at least once that I know of, and it's even quoted here in the article. But yeah, this is a pretty bad sight for the rest of the world. The tensions are definitely rising, and that's also not good, because even with the tensions, all that does is add a bunch of friction between the two, and it's getting to the point now where you're getting in that room where you can like kind of mistake could really start something, you know what I mean? Like somebody accidentally fucks up and shoots first in a way, and next thing you know, the world's at war, right? Like it's getting pretty insane. It's almost like a new Cold War has developed between China and the United States. Quote, that is what is profoundly disrupting the status quo and creating tremendous tensions, he said. Mr. Blinken added that the U.S. would honor its commitments to Taiwan and support the island's ability to defend itself. Washington has always walked a diplomatic tightrope over the issue of Taiwan and China. Its official policy does not commit to military action on Taiwan, but U.S. President Biden has seemingly gone against this stance by repeatedly emphasizing that Washington would defend Taiwan. Secretary Blinken's comments come as China is holding a twice-in-a-decade party Congress, in which President Xi is widely expected to be elected in a historic third theme in office. In his opening remarks on Sunday, Mr. Xi insisted that complete reunification of our country must and will be realized. Quote, we will continue to strive for peaceful reunification with the greatest sincerity and the utmost effort, but we will never promise to renounce the use of force, he said. Tensions between U.S. and China have been high in recent months, especially after a visit to Taipei by U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi. China conducted large-scale military exercises in response to Ms. Pelosi's visit, something Taiwan condemned as, quote, highly provocative. So, I mean, I feel like it's been pretty obvious that the U.S. was going to do this, you know, just because Biden is basically the first person to come out and say like, oh, hey, yeah, we would use military force against China to defend Taiwan. That, like I said, I feel like that's kind of always just been the actual stance to begin with. The whole ambiguity thing was really just like kind of a strategic thing. It's like kind of in place so that like China, when they're like thinking about invading Taiwan, right, they got to sit there and think like, oh, well, will the U.S. respond? Obviously, the U.S. is still the dominant military and economic power on the planet, so it would be pretty catastrophic for these two countries to get into conflict with one another. I mean, most of the top militaries in the world would eventually be involved against one another. And let's be real, the devastation to the planet and to society would be just tremendous. I mean, I know it sounds really cliche and kind of corny or whatever, but I really wish we lived in a world where like instead of invading each other and like just fucking going to war all the time, just destroying and then rebuilding everything, I really just wish we lived on a planet where we didn't have to worry about shit like this, man, where you don't have to sit there in your car on your way to work at Subway and think like, hey, am I gonna get blown up by a nuclear fucking bomb today because, you know, two countries don't like each other? Obviously, that would be probably impossible, man. I understand it's human nature for there to be like beef and fights and stuff like that, but dude, it's just so nerve-wracking always seeing another article in the news where it's like, oh, hey, war is inevitable, guys. Just want to remind you, just want to let you know, the US and China will eventually go to war. It's so fucking depressing. But at the end of the day, man, like this is just the reality of the situation, you know? If this is the world we live in, I feel an obligation to talk about it and bring attention to it because this is something people should know about. People should know how close we really are. Like, if you read the history books in like 100 years, these are the days that are going to be marked down as like the pre-war, you know what I mean? Like, where the tensions really started to build up and everything. So, I don't know, man. With that being said, though, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubTheOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus channel members. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about World War III and signing out.